All right, and welcome back, everyone, to the Elevated Trader Podcast. We are in part 2 of, what's the book called?
Homeless to Billionaire.
Homeless to Billionaire. What do you think so far? We're diving into part 2, which is covering the next 4 principles. So last episode, we covered the first 4. This time, we're covering the next 4. And what are we starting with, Kristen?
Principle number 5. I've got celebration creates addiction to progress. So this one is kind of interesting for me because this has come up a lot in different parts of my life where people are like, you need to celebrate. You need to celebrate your wins. And like, they're talking like on a daily. And from what I'm getting from this book is that it perpetuates the ability to keep morale high. If you have a team, keep your own internal morale high. And I have a feeling Tracy's a little bit like me where we just work. And we tend to be more focused on what's not going right versus what's going right. I don't know. What did you think about this principle?
Yeah, but at the same token, I know that I feel very good when I'm making accomplishments, when I'm hitting those goals, so it feels good. I need that confirmation from the people around me that I'm working with that I'm on the right track, that I'm meeting the expectations because it feels good. It feels good, and that's what drives me, right?
Do you actually take a moment to celebrate? Like go to dinner, buy yourself something nice? Like,
no, I don't for myself, but I love it when other people do for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then you're relying on external forces, which may not be the healthiest.
Yes, you're right.
Just something to think about. I mean, again, I was just telling you that this one has been showing up a lot in my life, and it's almost to the point where it's good to maybe have an accountability buddy or, someone that you share, not just like your days in and days out, like asking, what are you celebrating today? I put it into my, my journaling. I'm like, what are you celebrating? Because it wasn't happening enough.
Right. So, and I do that as well. It's in my journal, but I actually don't physically do something that actually celebrates.
How about we pinky shake that we try to work harder on that?
Sure.
On some level. I mean, it doesn't have to be every day, but like, I feel like it's really important. I mean, we did it with our children, right? I mean, we do it with our spouses, maybe because we're maybe the planners. I mean, I'm the planner. I'm a self-proclaimed constant planner. So I'll plan for everybody else, but there was a point where I was told that to set a particular type of goal, actually, it was my very first trading goal years and years and years ago. And when that happened, I had a particular thing that I wanted to purchase. So I kind of I like that idea, which is different. But the little wins every day as you get to those goals, I think is what we forget.
No, it's a great point. And that's going to be a tough one for me, trying to figure out how to celebrate that on a daily basis because it feels wrong to me. So I got to work through that whole, that's a mind shift. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Little celebrations maybe on the daily that are just between you and you, but like actually celebrating, what is that teaching those around us? What is that teaching our children and our relatives? Like it actually brings more joy, and we should be living in a lot more joy day in and day out. So if it's forced until it feels good, what do you do?
Yeah. I think, because a thought just popped into my head, but I feel like a lot of this, I guess, conflict when it comes to celebrating my wins, celebrating my successes, celebrating my skills or talents or whatever it might be, probably comes back to early development and hearing things like, oh, don't brag, or not wanting to be a bragger, or thinking at some point that the only thing that was appropriate was for external people to actually validate your successes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that needs to be corrected because that's wrong. That's jealousy of other people that don't want to help build you up. They would rather keep you down while they're down. And as a child, you don't really recognize that those are the people that are around you, and that needs to change. That's a shift. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, it's like self-reflection, right?
Absolutely.
Like self-proclaimed. Yeah. This is interesting. And this, just to wrap up this particular principle, there was 12,000 diary entries from 238 employees at 7 different companies. And the findings, they're like, he's like, the findings were fascinating. Workers' motivation was enhanced when they wrote down their achievements daily in the diary. Mm-hmm. So the practice of recording our progress, I think, is what they're trying to get across.
Well, it makes sense, right? We are so conditioned to focus on the negative, see the negative. We can spot the negatives. And unless we can see the progress, I totally get it. It's so hard for us to pull out of that, whether we're on track or whether we're doing well. So it's a great habit to be in. And yeah, like I said, it's great. In my journal, I have a section every single day that asks, what did I do correctly? And I fill that out every single time. It's not what did I do wrong? It's what did I do correctly? I don't even have a question in there that says, what did I do wrong? I have a question that says, what did I do successfully? And what do I need to follow up on? That's kind of you made a mistake. You need to review it. So.
Well, it's interesting because what did I do correctly makes me think it's so finite. Like there's no black and white and there's so much gray sometimes in doing something successfully, because that way it's like you hit a wall, you went around the wall, you made it successfully. But doing it correctly means from point A to point B, you had it laid out. Like to me, that's really like, that's an internal thought pattern I'm having now. So it's kind of like, ooh, don't give me like A to Z, because I'm going to do A, E, B, G, F, K, O, back to K, like I'm going to get to Z, but okay. Anyways, so, you ready for principle 6?
I am. Principle 6. So principle 6 is the law of vibrational giving. Now, so far, this has actually been my favorite principle in the book. And I probably got the most mental shifts with this particular part, because what he's talking about with this vibrational giving is it's not the actual giving that is important. It's the feeling and emotion that's connected with that giving. And
extra intent would have to be put on it.
Yeah. And I loved that he brought up tithing, because that is so common in our society. And I remember going to church at one point and being told I have to give 10%, and I'm not giving it from my heart. I'm being told that's what I should be doing. And there's a little bit of resentment under there because I didn't understand it. I was younger, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that has ever felt that.
Or just wrapping their head around it still as an adult.
Right. Yeah. And even tipping is a form of giving, but when you walk into a restaurant and you see something and it's an automatic thing, you have to do it. There's this feeling and emotion that's attached to it that may or may not be a good thing. And when you recognize that the feeling and emotion that's attached to your giving is really what the universe is going to give back to you, that's a perspective shift. So yeah,
I like that.
I thought this was a really valuable section. One of the things he said is the feeling attached to the giving is more critical than most people may realize. And then, yeah.
Well, I have that underlined too.
Yeah, that's good. The other thing that he mentions is when I wish someone a good day, I do it with genuine feelings of wanting that person to have a good day. Most people say, have a good day, and it's just dead. There's no attached feeling to it at all. And I don't know how many times I've, walked down the street or something, or I've asked somebody, how are you? And I personally genuinely mean, how are you? I'm interested in knowing, but their response is very nonchalant because it's no different than, a lot of the questions. They're used to being asked a question where it's insincere, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I think we're kind of hardwired, like he says, we're kind of hardwired to give. I think we're also hardwired to reciprocate, which I find interesting. I'm listening to another book that talks about the reciprocation of things and how unconscious and hardwired we are with that. But, you know, I did underline something else that I thought was interesting in this with the vibrational giving and just the meaning behind it. I think the takeaway is like, make sure you have more intent on not just what you say, but what you give. But he says in Thailand, on your birthday, you don't receive gifts, you give them.
I know, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I can't, so like, could you imagine that? I don't want a single gift. I will be giving you things. And so like, when I even say that or read that, I'm like, wow, what would that feel like? So it's very interesting. Well, we're so ingrained, aren't we?
Yeah, but you give gifts. You give gifts at Christmas. You give gifts at other times. So you have an understanding of what that feels like. I put a ton of energy into trying to figure out the perfect gift for my family and friends. I'm always doing that. And I'm excited when they go and open it. And actually, one of the things that really, I guess, bothers me is when my family, because my son and my husband are notorious for doing this, is picking up a package and guessing immediately what it is. And they just ruin the whole surprise.
Oh, no.
Right? That's what they do. Like, oh, yeah, it's this. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's so, yeah, because I put a lot of effort. There's a lot of intent behind what I go out to get. And it's a great feeling when you just hit that mark and somebody says, wow, this is great. I can't believe you got that for me. I love it.
Yeah. Right. Well, which leads us to the next principle, which is gratitude, which is pretty much a common theme. I mean, he spent a lot of time on gratitude, and which is good, because if this is one of the first books you've picked up, I mean, this is kind of written in a way that I think a lot of like late teen, early 20-year-olds could get a lot out of, because he hits it all. He hits it all quickly. He hits it all. He doesn't get too deep. He doesn't stay too long. I mean, it's written really well. And to me, it's, you know, he talks about his mentors, and it makes me think of Think and Grow Rich and some other people that I listen to. And it's almost like written for today's group of people, because Think and Grow Rich is not easy to read. Right. So,
well, all of these principles are not unique. All of these principles are not something that he's created or designed. He's gotten it from reading Napoleon Hill and all the books that we've talked about before. So it's no wonder that you kind of get it from some of that. But
and he does state that in the beginning of the book that, you know, he didn't invent this. He just was given a book instead of food or money, remember? So I think and then he's like, dare me, you know, he's like, I dare you to, you know, to try to make it not work. So I like both of those parts of it. I really do. I think it's pretty good. So anything stand out in Principle 7?
Oh, sure. There was lots of stuff that stood out in Principle 7. He says the key to gratitude I found was to let go and stop worrying about the things I did not have in my life. Switching focus to what I did have made all the difference. And I see this regularly, I guess. Again, that focus on not, even in trading, I find that a lot of people are focused on the money because that's what they don't have. They focus on the money, instead of focusing on the process. And what they do have, you've got the learning, you've got the education, you've got whatever you do have for your account, you have the ability to trade, you have your internet, you have, like, focus on the process instead of focusing on what you don't have. And I find the ones that are focusing on the money, they're losing massively and not being able to get past that obstacle because maybe it's gratitude. Don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. It's funny because I have that switching my focus to what I did have. I have that underlined. The other part that I pulled out of it is when you intentionally, back to intention, right? Intentionally show gratitude. So you're showing it now. You get intentional results.
So what does that mean for you?
So, well, intention is really important because it makes you pause, I feel. And I think the pause is what creates the intention deeper. So by intention, you are putting attention on something and giving it more meaning. That's my viewpoint. But then to show gratitude, not just write gratitude, think gratitude, but to show it, that's a whole new level, right? Because now you have to intentionally do something physically. So I got back to, likely because of this book, I really don't know what started it, but I have these little thank you grams and write thank you notes to people that I feel like I just don't want to say it. I want to send them something they could actually get in the mail, and it's really hideously bright yellow, and it looks like an old guy delivering the mail. It's really not cute, but the fact that they open it, they usually really, really appreciate it. So it's more of an action,
especially in today's day and age, because most people are used to a text or an email. To get an actual snail mail. Wow. Did that person ever go through above and beyond to do something, right? That could do nothing but make the person feel gratitude.
And I buy them in boxes of the company that I get these little tiny thank you grams. If anybody wants them, just email me, but they're in boxes of 300. I mean, you don't, so they're literally made for this situation where you just are constantly writing little thank yous to people. Yeah. So just a thought. But the end of that sentence is you get intentional results. So what do you think he means by that?
Well, I mean, from what I'm understanding in this whole book is that this vibrational giving, the gratitude, the intention you get back, it's kind of like a yin yang. There's an energy. Whatever you put into the universe, that's what you get back. And I'm thinking that when you're giving intentional gratitude, the gratitude that you receive is also going to be with intention, and you're going to be receiving that same type of sensation, which is going to feel pretty good, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's good. Now I want to go back a little bit first for a second to the gratitude and take that step of action to the next level with intention. And I mean, because you and I have done the morning miracle or the miracle morning, we do a morning routine where we, to talk about our things that we're grateful for. But what about taking that next step and actually, as you said, pause, feel what that gratitude feels like visualize it at the same time, smell that gratitude, taste that gratitude, just absorb it, open right up and let it fill your soul in a moment, however that might be, right?
So I remember somebody saying the best way to do that is to remember a time where you had so much gratitude about something or some place or some event, because then you can go back to that feeling.
What if you don't have those feelings, those history, or they're so buried that they're really hard to unearth?
Then you might want to look ahead and say, what would you be grateful for? What would that feel like if that happened?
That's a great tip. Excellent.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
I like if you don't have, some people it's just, a meal or something, or a raise. Sure. Yeah, who knows? Yeah. A new car. Yeah.
Love it.
Anything.
Some great tips. All right, principle 8. Have ideas so massive others get uncomfortable. Massive ideas. Okay. Massive success comes from extraordinary discipline, dedication, and the power of bigger thinking. This has been a big challenge for myself personally.
I think this is absolutely a challenge for any big thinker. This one says, don't let the naysayers stop you when you get an inspired idea. Instead, let your mind go and think about the concept in the grandest sense. Now, make it so grand that when you describe it, people get uncomfortable. Have you ever done that, Tracy?
No.
Have you ever been in a group of people that had conversations about there's a question. So I have been in a place where the group of people, there's probably 15 to 20 of us sitting around the dinner table. And the question is presented to everybody going around the table. It was very similar to this. I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it's like, what do you really want? What's like the big, hairy, audacious dream, right? Like, what is that? And because you feel safe in these people, it's uncomfortable for you to say it, but everyone around you is supportive. But then you come home and say it to everybody in your house or in your neighborhood. They're just like, and this, I've been here before so many times. I'm not used to it at this point, honestly.
I remember having a lot of really big dreams when I was younger. I can't remember specifics about those dreams, but I do know one of the things that I've experienced through my life is all those people around me tearing it down, saying it can't happen. And at some point, I stopped thinking big. And it wasn't until I started hanging out with real life trading that I started to be surrounding myself with people that think big. I have to say my husband is also like that. He thinks big and he encourages me to think big. I just haven't been able to get back to where I was when I was younger. Like I have to fix or repair all the damage that had occurred, growing up. Does that make sense?
Two things. Jeremy Alexander Newsom, it surrounds himself with people that are big thinkers. So kudos to, having that opportunity, because that's who you're talking about with real life trading. It is because of him, because he's running the show over there. So I can agree with you on that. He's been one of my big mentors. And matter of fact, he was at that table that I was describing to you. He wasn't the person that started the conversation, but he was at that table. So that tells you the type of people sitting around the table at the island. So I was kind of surprised you probably went through the same questionnaire at the same dinner. But
we did.
Weren't there
we had
together.
A totally different question.
Okay, so hold on to that question. But what's weird? All these years later, because that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and I came home from that trip, and I'm like, God, I'm playing too small. And the whole time I was there, it was the realization, like, I have to go home and like step into who and more that I am. Because I knew there was a rift. I knew I was getting pushed, and that was those conversations. You got to be around the right people. They make you expand your brain, right?
Yeah.
So fast forward to literally last week, sitting around the dinner. I was out of town at my family's house, and I was expressing, we were talking about celebrations of last year, lessons learned and celebrations, because it was Christmas time. And I kind of went and I ran around the table, and I remember how it came up, but I have been having this really cool business idea, and I've run it by a couple people at the office, and I still really like this business idea, but my father just immediately went into naysayer. Like, I called him out. I'm 50 now. I'm calling your shit. Like, don't even bring this to the table. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm a realist. And I'm like, you're not a realist. You're like pushing people down. Like, I literally wasn't taking it, because I've had that before in a relationship decades ago. No, I'm a realist. I'm like, no, you're a small thinker. Like, I was literally like not taking it. So yeah, it still happens even as a grown woman, even if you're a child. I mean, you just talked about being raised by people.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to watch out for that stuff.
Well, and that's one of the tips here. And I think that that's something that I need to make sure that I implement is he talks about only sharing his big dreams with people he knows are going to be supportive.
I share my dreams with you, Tracy.
I share them with you too. My struggle right now is that creativity, that big thinking part of my brain has been submerged for so long that I try to think bigger, and I'm still sitting inside that comfort zone. I've not been able yet to push outside those boundaries. There's still that automatic correction, that auto edit that's taking place inside the brain. And I need to fix that. I need to stop that auto edit and just let it spew.
It's so weird that you bring that up, because last night, so my journaling has been falling into the nighttime, which is not that bad, because then I don't feel so rushed when it's more in the evenings. I think it's because my questions are much deeper than they used to be. And one of them was envision and feel your future. And so I think because my dreams and goals and visions and futures have changed and expanded a lot, recently, that to sit there and like get into the feeling, I literally paused and said, I need to pull this out and I need to go have a couple hours and fill this out. Because I think, and I'm speaking for myself and from what I've learned, is when you can't fill that out, that's where you're stuck. You're stuck right there in the, well, I don't know. Like if you can't envision it and then add the feelings to it, which that's supposed to be the thing, right? That's the vibrational attachment to your future. Mm-hmm. So Tracy, I think what we should do is literally set up a time where we have that time aside, no interruptions, and we are literally making it happen and writing it out. Pen to paper, not typing.
Fair enough.
Yay.
Let's do it.
Pinky shake. Right
pinky
there.
Shake.
Pinky shake.
Pinky
For
shake.
all the people watching the videos, we just did a pinky shake over the internet.
Perfect.
What are we, 4,000 miles away?
Yeah, at least.
Cool.
It's okay.
Okay, so where are we now? I mean, that one just speaks for itself, just the title alone. I love that
I do
one.
want to mention the story of Tom's shoes, because I think
okay.
I think that story was it was touching. I didn't know that about Tom's shoes, and I thought that was really good. And then for those of you that don't know about Tom's shoes, I mean, read the book,
or Google it.
Yeah, or Google it. But I think it's a great story. What a company! Like for every pair of shoes, they give a pair of shoes to somebody else. Now, the shoes that he created, this guy, that wasn't the big idea. In fact, he just copied it from something else that he had seen and made it work. The big idea was to solve the problem of children that didn't have shoes. And that's where the big idea came in. He partnered that big idea with a successful business plan. And they've been putting shoes on kids for years.
Yeah,
which I just thought it was a great story.
Yeah. And the other thing he does mention at the end in all caps, so obviously it's kind of important, is acting quickly on big ideas.
Yes, he did mention that too. Acting quickly.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with that mostly because when you don't, I feel like it kind of haunts you. Like it's just kind of, how do I put this? Until you do it, you're going to be ruminating and thinking about it, or going, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that?
Or the opposite, talking yourself out of it and saying it's a dumb idea, or it's right. All that negative talk starts to come in. You can talk yourself out of that big dream very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it my turn now?
No.
Oh, are we done?
We're done for this episode.
Okay.
We will see you all on the next episode. Have a great day.
Let's do it.